Hi folks. In the spirit of the Christmas season, I would like to present a video about what gives me hope. Consider it a Christmas gift to you. The genesis for this video happened last year around Christmas. I find this time of year magical in many senses of the word, so I hope I can pass some of that magic along to you. People familiar with my channel will know that for a long time I really enjoyed the work of the writer and occultist John Michael Greer. But his right-wing nationalist politics really came to the forefront since the rise of Donald Trump, and I found myself taking his words with more and more grains of salt. Until last year, shortly before Christmas, at this point I could no longer ignore his bad politics or misanthropic pessimism. Most lefties I know who once liked his work had already checked out by this point, but I kept reading him even though I increasingly did so with an eye to criticize him. Having bought into parts of his worldview, this falling out had me feeling a bit down going into the Christmas holiday. I felt a bit liberated too, but this did not manifest entirely for a few days. More on that later. While I don't like Greer's politics, the problem with his thinking goes deeper. He subscribes to a brand of pessimistic historicism that I find not only bleak, but just plain wrong. He favors the work of historians like Oswald Spengler and Arnold Toynbee. These historians take a cyclical view of history. While I agree that history often repeats itself, I don't think this approach has as much predictive power as Greer ascribes to it. Sure, you can easily chart the rise and fall of empires in the past, and get a decent read on how our current civilization could follow the same path. But a lot of things you simply can't predict, because new factors come into the equation that break patterns and create new ones. Greer's view of history can make you very skeptical of change and new ideas. It can also put you in a real mental rut, a kind of Gnostic prison. It's not quite Nietzsche's eternal return, but it certainly resonates with it.
This is a world where nothing is solved. When someone once told me time is a flat circle. Everything we've ever done or will do, we're gonna do over and over and over again. And that little boy and that little girl, they're gonna be in that room again. And again. And again. Forever.
Now, I'm aware that Karl Popper has made some very similar critiques of historicism, particularly in his book, The Poverty of Historicism. For the sake of brevity, clarity, and not getting into a discussion about Marxism and historicism, which is not the point of this video, I won't draw directly on his work. But I do want to acknowledge that some of my points will seem similar to ones Popper made. Anyway, I object to the cyclical view of history because it seems clear that history is a process of evolution we are in the midst of. It is still playing out. New developments constantly emerge to disrupt old models people use to make predictions. By its very nature, history contains not only patterns that repeat, but new things nobody expected, which change the world in unanticipated ways. Greer's historicism always reminded me of this passage from Ecclesiastes. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. I don't think I need to point out that since this was written down in the Old Testament, we have certainly seen new things under the sun. Adopting Greer's view can prevent you from accepting the possibility that new ideas can succeed, or that ideas that failed could get a second chance because inhibiting factors have gone away. The most inspiring rejection of this kind of pessimism comes from the movie Lawrence of Arabia. I don't remember much from the film. I get the impression that the wide shots really impressed people when the movie came out, kind of like CGI did initially, but I found it really long and slow. However, it has one scene that I absolutely love. Let's put aside the issues of Orientalism, British imperialism, and European chauvinism for a second. The scene that inspires me comes when Lawrence is traveling through the Nafud Desert with Sharif Ali and his men. Even the Bedouins consider this desert impassable. Nevertheless, they have traveled day and night through it so they can sneak attack the Turks at Aqaba. They have almost crossed the desert and reached the wells when they realize that during the night, one of their men, Qasim, has succumbed to fatigue and fallen off his camel.
Why don't you stop?
For what? He will be dead by midday.
We must go back.
What for? To die with Qasim? In God's name, understand. We cannot go back.
I can.
If you go back, you kill yourself, is all.
Qasim's time is come, my friends. It is written.
Nothing is written.
You will not be at Aqaba, English. Go back, blasphemer! But you will not be at Aqaba!
I shall be at Aqaba. That is written. In here.
Then he turns around to find Qasim, which he does. When Lawrence arrives at the wells with Qasim, before quenching his obviously deep thirst, he tells Ali once more,
Nothing is written.
It is a powerful scene. This impresses Ali enough that he remarks to Lawrence later,
Truly, for some men, nothing is written unless they write it.
I find this scene inspiring. Whenever someone points to the past as a reason for why we can't improve things, it comes to mind, and I repeat, nothing is written, like a mantra. That's not to say we don't face hard limits and that we can achieve anything through sheer will and determination. Sometimes we face material conditions we can't overcome. But too often, people point to tendencies and practices as if they represent absolute truths, and this mantra can help us test those artificial boundaries. In the political and economic spheres in particular, we see people simply accepting the state of human affairs as natural and unchangeable. Or, as Ursula Le Guin once said,
We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begin in art, and very often in our art, the art of words.
Having rejected the circular view of history, I guess this raises the question, if history doesn't just repeat itself, what does its path look like? Greer finds the cyclical view of history appealing partially because its limited predictive power makes it seem true. But he also likes it because it is antithetical to the idea of progress, which presents history as a straight line. In particular, he rejects the idea of ever-increasing technological progress. I happen to share his aversion to this idea, but at the same time, I think he does not fully appreciate the role technology plays in shaping human consciousness and history. Technology can change society so drastically that we can't really account for how new developments will change our trajectory. Prior to the printing press, nobody could have predicted how it would alter history. This goes beyond the most apparent effects of the technology, the printing and distribution of books. This no doubt created massive changes in literacy, education, and communication. But technologies also have what media theorist Marshall McLuhan called a spectrum of effects. Beyond the obvious changes, it shifts consciousness in unexpected, subtle ways. For example, seeing the movable type of the printing press brought forth the idea of interchangeable parts, which played a key role in manufacturing and automation. Nobody could have predicted this, and these changes took generations to play out. Now think about how many technological changes we have undergone in the past few decades that have not finished playing out. Forget the internet and all the different kinds of media it encompasses. These will likely bring about changes that dwarf those created by the printing press. I don't think we can even fully appreciate the changes brought about by something like videotape. We simply don't know how our technologies will affect our thinking and what new changes they will create that we could not anticipate. To say you know how people and institutions will behave when you can't take these factors into account seems a bit overconfident in predictive power. Every new medium rewires our brains, and we don't know what these tweaks will do on their own, let alone in aggregate. On a more direct level, we don't know how these technologies will change our abilities to communicate and organize. For example, the internet now allows political candidates in the US to fundraise a huge number of donations from ordinary individuals at the click of a button. While we should not get overconfident, we can't know how this could change a system that up until recently relied on large donors writing checks. Or think about how podcasts and audiobooks allow people to inform themselves on a subject while they go about their chores. It also seems significant that this often happens through parasocial relationships, leveraging human tendencies towards mimesis, human see, human do. People like Greer will scoff if you point this out. They will wave this away as believing in some kind of complete transformation of human consciousness. But while some people might see things this way, I still remember the hype around 2012. For the most part, I think he's battling a straw man here. I think we can continue to evolve with our technologies, and the fact that I find this possible does not mean that I think humans will turn into some kind of perfect angelic beings. But I do find it more than possible for us to change our perspective a little to allow us to make some basic changes needed to improve everyone's quality of life and lessen the ecological catastrophe that we face. I see the way our technologies have wired us together in a global information network. This stitching together of human consciousness inspires me, even though at times it more closely resembles a cerebral equivalent of the human centipede than anything else. At the moment, most digital platforms are under corporate control, but what could we do with them if they were collectively owned and democratically run? How could we alter our consciousness and positively incentivize behaviors in line with the values of human beings as opposed to capital, which runs them now? Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit priest, mystic, and paleontologist, called this emerging electronic information network the noosphere, and likened it to a nervous system for humanity and the planet. I don't see it as some kind of fluke that will disappear as our civilization collapses into a dark age. Perhaps it won't have its current form, but I see it as part of our collective evolution as a species, and an integral part of human life on this planet. The technological changes taking place right now resemble the development of an organism. Some of them seem as foreign and incomprehensible to us as puberty seems to a child. But looking back, we will see this evolution as an obvious and natural development. While some interpretations of Chardin look like a straight line, I tend to think of the picture he painted as the closest approximation of combining a circle with a straight line, a spiral. Patterns repeat, but things still progress even if we experience setbacks. We don't keep retreading the same exact ground, nor do we keep progressing into infinity. Anyway, our ability to understand and communicate that our technology facilitates has allowed us to see our own predicament. Our burning of fossil fuels is changing the climate in a way that will at the very least make life much more difficult for human beings. We can also see how human activity trashes the planet in dozens of other ways, sometimes as a consequence of the very systems we use to relay this message. Yet, in an odd way, I find hope here. Let me return to last year around Christmas. Literally around Christmas, meaning leading up to and following it in time. Where the solstice is the shortest day of the year, Christmas is the first day that it is clear the days are getting longer. After my exchange with Greer, I felt a bit down, kind of like the sun on the horizon. But the holiday picked me up as it usually does. I'm Italian American, and every Christmas Eve, my extended family gets together to eat an absurd amount of fish.
You can make a hand turkey.
For Christmas? Fucking idiot. Any of you know what bacala is? Of course you don't. Well, it's salted cod. We taught the world how to eat.
Christmas Day was great as well, and on Boxing Day, I sat down with the kids to watch A Muppet Christmas Carol. One particular scene really touched me, and believe it or not, it relates to the point I made about the global information system we have showing us all the world's problems. It comes when Scrooge is in the graveyard with the ghost of Christmas future.
Why would you show me this if I was past all hope?
I can't express how deeply this touched me or how much I needed to hear it, but I found it the perfect expression of the problem we find ourselves in. It does require a level of faith that might make some people uncomfortable. It requires you to believe in a purpose and a benevolence to our world that some might automatically reject. I don't think it necessarily requires a belief in a deity, although that easily follows if you have the inclination. But I do find this question relevant to our own predicament. Why show all of this to us if we are beyond all hope? Since this is the Christmas season, I will affirm that I don't believe God would do that, or the universe would be set up that way, if you want to use non-religious language. I don't believe God let us achieve this level of consciousness only so we could better comprehend our own tragedy. The world certainly has its share of cruelty, but I don't think it is that cruel. If you don't share this faith, then I have something else for you as well. Though if you do share my faith, I think you will like it too. The stories we tell matter. We don't appreciate this enough. If we change the story, we can make things that seemed impossible a reality, just like Lawrence in the desert. And in many ways, we find ourselves embedded in what looks like a narrative. People like Jordan Peterson have capitalized on this. Maybe it just seems like this, or maybe we do find ourselves in a narrative structure. Either way, Bernie Sanders is the story that inspires me right now. Back when he announced his first run for president, I was hoping that Elizabeth Warren would get in the race, as was Sanders. At the time, she was the best I could hope for, and I could not even imagine someone like Bernie getting anywhere near the presidency. But he has shifted the conversation in this country in just a few short years, inspiring a new generation to fight for things that had been off the table for far too long. He had the right position on just about every issue from the start and actually managed to get into the Senate and stay there. His 2016 candidacy gave a real jolt to the left in this country. And this time around, it really seems like he can win. His heart attack certainly brought that into doubt for a minute, but then in a turn of events that felt like something out of a Hollywood movie, he came back with renewed energy and even more support. This seemed punctuated by AOC's endorsement of Bernie, where she talked about how he changed the story she told herself.
The first time I ever heard about Bernie Sanders was when I was a waitress in a Greasy Spoon diner type of restaurant in downtown Manhattan. And I had been working 12-hour days. I didn't have health insurance. I was being paid less than a living wage. And I didn't think that I deserved any of those things. I thought that that's just how life was. The only reason that I thought running for office was even possible for me was because of his example, because he proved that you could run for office and not take big money.
AOC had believed in a story that our society tells. But like more and more people, she not only started to question it, she started writing her own. I don't know where our story will go, but I do know that nothing is written unless we write it ourselves. Remember that the next time someone tells you this is just the way things are. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, as well as a Happy Solstice, Happy Hanukkah, and a wonderful holiday season no matter what you do or don't celebrate. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you really like what I do here, please support me on Patreon. It's how I'm able to keep doing this. Patrons at the Rebel tier and up get premium content where I discuss psychedelics, the occult, and other not safe for work stuff. I also have some tarot t-shirts for sale. They feature the major arcana of the Marseille deck, which I use in my videos. I have them available in a bunch of colors, long sleeve, short sleeve, in unisex cuts, and women's cuts. I'm Greg Belvedere. Remember, all generalizations are stupid, so never speak in absolutes. Rebel Base, out.
I shall be at Aqaba. That is written in here.